Pineapple on pizza does constitute a crime, and I'm here to convince you of that. Rarely will you hear a speech as passionate as this one. I'm standing in Speaker's Corner in London's Hyde Park. This is a place where people can speak their minds openly, with passion and emphasis. But what exactly is emphasis in English, and how can you use it to give your sentence more power? Emphasis is a way for you to give more weight to certain aspects of what you're talking about. That way you can show your listeners what's most important, and your point will be more memorable. Mastering emphasis is helpful both in everyday talking and writing, but also when holding presentations or speeches and writing important emails or texts. There are a few different techniques to emphasizing. What they have in common is that you adjust the sentence structure to highlight a certain part of it. Let me show you what I mean in a first example. Never did I eat a more disgusting pizza than when I had my first Pizza Hawaii. A truly terrifying experience. This type of emphasis is called inversion. Normally, that sentence would look like this. I never ate a more disgusting pizza. Here we have the standard sentence structure subject, verb, object. In an inversion, you start the sentence with an adverbial, in this case never, followed by an auxiliary verb, the subject, and then the main verb. In most cases, the adverbial has a rather negative meaning. Other common inversion adverbials are rarely, hardly, little, or seldom. So with inversion, you mostly underline the rarity of an action or fact. And as you may have noticed, the normal sentence doesn't contain an auxiliary verb, did in this case. So that is something you add in an inversion. Another type of emphasis where you add such an auxiliary verb is the do emphasis. Here you emphasize the main verb of a sentence by adding a do in front of it. Here's what I mean. I do know my opinion might be unpopular, but I do advise you to never put pineapple on a pizza. As you can see, just by adding the small word do, I highlight the following verb. In this case, I emphasize that I am aware of how unpopular my opinion might be and discourage the listeners to put pineapple on a pizza nonetheless. Be aware that you may have to adjust the do depending on the sentence. You use does when using he, she, it, and did when using past tense. In case you were wondering why I chose to present my case against pineapple on pizza here in Speaker's Corner, let me explain. Up until the 18th century, people were hanged right here, on a gallows. Everyone who was condemned to die here could make a final speech, and some took that opportunity to criticize the authorities. That tradition remained even after the gallows were gone. Important historic people like Karl Marx or George Orwell regularly demonstrated free speech here. So if there's any place to fight against pineapple on pizza, it's here. Now that you know about the most important types of grammatical emphasis, there's one more thing to talk about. How to use emphasis while talking. It's not enough to just change the structure of a sentence. You also have to sell your message with the right accentuation. Let's say you use the do emphasis. Give the do a little extra oomph. I do hate pineapple on pizza. In an inversion, you would emphasize the adverbial at the beginning of the sentence. Never did I eat a more disgusting pizza. Of course, you can use the spoken emphasis in normal sentences too. By accentuating certain words, you can give them more importance. A common word to emphasize is the article the. Speaker's Corner is the place to speak your mind openly. Notice how I pronounced the article? Normally, you would only pronounce it in that way if the following noun starts with a vowel. Still, you can emphasize that noun in that way even if it doesn't. But of course, that only works in spoken, not in written English. Let's recap. You can use emphasis to highlight certain parts of your spoken or written English. There are several ways to do that. In an inversion, you adjust the sentence structure by bringing an adverbial and an auxiliary verb to the beginning of the sentence. You mostly use it to emphasize the rarity of a situation. With the do emphasis, you can highlight an action. You simply add the auxiliary verb do in front of the main verb. Also keep in mind that while speaking, you should also accentuate certain words to further stress your emphasis. And that's all you need to know about emphasis. Please excuse me, I'll give my speech now. I've never seen such an abomination as pineapple on a